Aloha. How you
How
doing
are
today,
you?
Joni?
Yes, aloha. Aloha being from Hawaii, the place I haven't gotten to yet, and that I
Yeah.
just looking forward to the time when I can actually get there now, especially. To probably speed things up for me because the moment they give me the go ahead, I'm going to start going all of those places that I wanted to
Wonderful.
go. I thought I had all the time in the world, and then there was a little halt. So,
A little pause.
anyway.
A little pause. Well, it'll get back on track, though. We know.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm super excited about your topic today. And if you just don't mind introducing yourself and go ahead and get started, that would be great.
Sure, sure. My name is Ron Soderstrom. I'm a certified hypnotherapist. I live over here in the beautiful islands of Hawaii. I actually live on the island Kauai. We are the furthest west point in the U.S. and stuff. We're just a little tiny speck of a rock out here in the middle of nowhere. And at the same time, we are surrounded by so much beauty. I just love this place. I came in from Seattle, Washington originally, and this has definitely been one of the best choices that I've made in my life. Uh, for myself, I specialize in stress and anxiety. I work with athletes. I work with basically anybody that's looking to get past those hurdles, to be able to get past those walls. And what I really, really enjoy doing is just getting down to the base of things, about using foundational principles, things that we're already doing naturally, both mindfully and also in our physicality, things, processes that are already happening that we just aren't necessarily aware of. And when you bring awareness to those things, when you bring mindfulness to those, then you're able to capitalize on things that you've been doing your entire life. And one of my favorite tools that I love to share with people is the simple act of breathing. Breath. We've had it from the moment that we came into this world, and we'll have it till the moment that we step out of it. And it's so empowering when we know how to use it properly, when we know how to use it for our benefit. So what I like to do to start out with is that I wanna create a little bit of a metaphor, a different way of thinking about breathing. So what I'd like everyone to do is to actually think about oxygen as being fuel, in our bodies actually being an engine. And in order to motivate this engine, to get it all fired, revved up, we simply inhale that oxygen, take it into our body, into our engine. We convert it into that fuel, and we make energy. It's a great, great thing, right? We're able to do all the things that we want to do, especially for what we're talking about today, athletes. We know the importance of breathing. We know how important being able to be mindful about it, being able to breathe in the proper ways and allow us to experience what it is that we want out there. Now, there's some interesting facts about that. When we breathe in different ways, we actually create different chemicals in the body. And that's what we're going to be focusing in on today. We're going to be focusing on basically two basic aspects of our breath, two different ways of breathing that create two different chemicals and two different reactions in both our physicality, our emotions, and our mentality. So once again, taking that metaphor of us being an engine, we breathe in the fuel, we convert that, and we get energy. That's a wonderful, wonderful thing. Now, another interesting thing is that when we breathe in these different ways, we're creating different kinds of energy. What I like to start off with is that when we breathe in through our mouth, when we're breathing into our lungs, we actually create adrenaline. Adrenaline, that's good stuff, especially being athletes. We need that adrenaline. We need that high revved up energy to be able to keep us going in those moments when other people don't necessarily have it, and we push through to the finish. So once again, we're breathing through our mouth, we're breathing into our lungs, we create adrenaline. Great, great stuff. Now, another thing that has us breathing into our lungs, that up into this upper chest area, is also something else that we experience on a continual basis, and especially something that the majority of us are experiencing right now without even realizing it. Now, obviously, the world's in quite a bit of turmoil with the corona and whatnot going on. And everybody's kind of wondering what's going on. We're trapped in our homes. We're used to being active. We're used to being out there doing things, engaging with other people, creating good energy inside of us, all the endorphins, the oxytocin, the dopamine, all those wonderful, wonderful things. And at this moment, we're kind of at a standstill. And at the same time, we're still creating that adrenaline without even knowing it. And the reason we're doing that is because at this moment, especially a time when we sense that we're in danger, when people are going through a lot of fear, when people are really worried and concerned, we're actually going into the fight, flight, or freeze state, the 3 Fs. And the thing is that the majority of us, we don't even realize it. Yes, we know we're worried, we know that we're concerned, we know that we're anxious about the future, that we're excited to be able to get things going back to normal, or a sense of normality again, because we know that things will never quite be the same after this. I actually personally think that we're going to be growing a lot out of this, that people are discovering a lot of things about themselves that they didn't know before, that we're actually getting time to actually expand ourselves in ways that we never gave ourselves times for before. So reiterating, right now with all the stress, the anxiety that everyone's going through, we're also kicking in the fight, flight, or freeze mode. And so everybody, when we go into that fight, flight, or freeze mode, we actually create adrenaline. And the reason for that is that anytime that we sense that we're in danger, anytime that our unconscious mind senses that we're in any kind of danger, it automatically changes our breathing up into our chest, so that we can create adrenaline to be able to either fight off what's going on, to be able to run like hell, or in the worst case scenario, we freeze. And I'll be getting to that, what's so bad about that here in a little bit. So once again, I want to reiterate about that. When we breathe into our chest, when the fight, flight, or freeze mode kicks in, we automatically breathe high up in. That's why a lot of people, when we talk about being stressed, about being anxious, you feel that tension. You see people close up. People talk about their shoulders being tight, their chest being tight, neck, back of the neck, so many different areas. That's because that adrenaline's kicking in. They're actually coming into a defensive posture. They're making sure, once again, they're safe. So as this automatic process is kicking in, as we're breathing and we're creating all this adrenaline, that's a really good thing. That's a great thing. It's an automatic process. That gives us the energy to do what we need to do at that moment. Now, once again, listen to that statement. It gives us the energy to do what we need to do at that moment. Once again, fight or flight. The worst possible scenario is freeze. Because when we freeze, that means we're stuck. We're just stuck sitting in place. And now all of a sudden, when we're dumping all this adrenaline into the system, and you're just sitting there in place, not doing anything with it, well, that's when anxiety really kicks in. That's when we start experiencing overwhelm. That's when we're not able to think clearly, and when people can really fall apart. So whenever we're looking at the best possible scenarios to go about things, when it comes down to the 3 Fs, is either that fight or flight scenario, because at least then we're taking action of some sort. We're doing something about what's happening. And that's actually the worst scenario about what we're experiencing at this time, is because all of a sudden everybody is on lockdown. We're stuck in our homes. We're not doing the things that we used to do to be able to release energy. And we're just having all that adrenaline just stewing in our system, which once again creates all that anxiety, creates all the overwhelm. Now, when we're going through that state, our bodies become very tense, become very constricted and restrictive. Now, when you think about your arteries, your veins pumping the blood, the oxygen, all the nutrients throughout our bodies, well, all of a sudden those veins, those capillaries become very condensed, very tight. So now all of a sudden we're not getting all the oxygen that we need throughout our system. When we talk about people being lightheaded, even fainting from being so struck with anxiety, that's because they're just not getting the proper nutrients and oxygen throughout their entire body. The body senses this, it just goes ahead and just shuts us down just to make sure that we're safe, that things don't get any worse from that point on. What we're going to be doing today is teaching you how to be more aware when you go into that state, and how to be able to pull yourself out of it easily, naturally, and to be able to actually excel, to be able to use that energy that the body's giving you in a good and productive way. Wonderful. All right. So once again, when we breathe in through the mouth, breathe into the lungs, we're creating all that wonderful energy, all that wonderful adrenaline, allowing us to do any of the things that we want to do. When we're stuck in that freeze, now that's that worst case scenario. We're sitting there, we have our foot on the gas all the way down, while at the same time, the other foot is on the brake pedal. We're just sitting there spinning our wheels. We're just smoking. We're not doing anything. And it just continues to just build up, build up, build up. Well, I'm going to take that foot off of the gas and actually be able to give you a way to be able to just put that engine into a nice, easy coast where you get to feel good about it. Because here's the thing, when you're going through that stress, when you're going through that anxiety, you're also not being present. Because when we're thinking about stress, we're actually in the past. We're thinking about things that have happened to us, hoping that it's not going to happen to us again. Oh, why did I do that? What if that comes up again? When we're going through anxiety, we're actually living in the future. We're making up stories. What if this happens? What if that goes down? And especially in times of uncertainty like this one, you just don't quite know. That anxiety has a tendency to build up and build up. Now, the perfect place where we want to be is not in the past, not in the future. Yes, those are both great places for learning lessons, because we need that. We need to learn the lessons of the past. We also have to make some kind of a plan for the future. And yet the best place to take action is here and now. When we're in the present, especially as athletes, you know that. When you think about past failures, if you think about the things that you've done in the past that wasn't necessarily productive, when you start making up the stories about what's going to happen to that race, to whatever it is that you're going through that isn't in accordance with you being successful, well, we all know what happens then, don't we? We're definitely not being present. We're definitely not being at our best. So in order to find ourselves present, to actually find ourselves in the best state for us to be able to achieve the things that you want, and also what we're going through right now, to be able to find yourself in a state where you can actually think about things clearly, to continue going through practices, trainings, personal training that will actually allow you to come out of this better than ever. Now, in order to do that, we just simply change our breathing. We change our breath. We actually breathe through our nose, deep down into our stomach. Now, we've all heard about this plenty of times, belly breathing. Yoga has been a proponent of it for generations. And it just makes sense. You know, you breathe down in, yes, you feel comfortable, you feel a bit more relaxed. And I'm going to tell you why, the scientific aspect of it and all the wonderful things that it actually provides for you. When we breathe through our nose, deep down into our belly, we actually create a chemical called nitric oxide. Now, if you've been into bodybuilding or anything of that sort, you've probably heard of that chemical. A lot of bodybuilders, they like to take it because it actually enlarges our veins. It allows for more blood to flow, more oxygen, more water to flow, allowing them to hold a better pump and to actually gain some strength out of that at the same time. So when we're breathing through our nose, deep down into our stomach, we're actually naturally creating nitric oxide. Now, once again, being a vascular dilator, dilating the veins, allowing more blood energy to flow through it, it also allows our body to operate at a more efficient level. And it also allows us to think clearly, because all the veins, all the arteries that are going up to our brain, they're now allowing for all the proper nutrients and oxygen to flow where it's most needed. It allows us to think clearly and to be present. That's right. When you breathe through your nose, deep down into your stomach, it allows you to be present, to be here and to be now. Not caught up in the past, not worrying about the future, but actually being where you actually have a place of power, where you can actually do what's necessary, when you can think clearly and take all those lessons that you've had from the past and all those plans that you have for the future and use them for your best results. Now, when I talk about breathing down into the stomach, plenty of us, we breathe down low and we can feel that expansion. But I'd like you to actually think about this in a little bit of a different way. I'd like to add a little bit more to it. What I've found the best results for all my clients is when I have them, and yourself also, is to imagine a ball or a balloon deep down in your hips. And it can be any color that you want. And as you think about it right now, you can even see that color. You can feel that sensation of the ball down there in your stomach, down low, down in your hips. And as you breathe in through your nose, actually allow that breath to go straight down into that ball, balloon, whatever it may be for you, and feel it expand. Don't allow your shoulders to rise, but keep it down as low as possible. Now, as you do so, you're also going to be giving yourself a sort of an internal massage. You'll be feeling your abdominals, your psoas muscles, your femurs right there in your hips. You're going to be actually massaging all those areas. One of the places that people tend to hold tension without even realizing it, it's the core, it's the center of who we are. And as we breathe in and out, massaging those areas, creating those wonderful chemicals all throughout our body, allowing us to be present, allowing us to feel good now. Now, there isn't a person that I've worked with or that I've even taught this to that hasn't felt relaxation within moments. And that's because we're actually kicking in the automatic relaxation activation in our body. So it's a natural process. It's something that we've been doing since the day that we were born. And we just didn't necessarily know about it or the reason why. One of my favorite things about this is that when you have the science behind it, when you know the legitimacy behind it, not just someone telling you just to breathe into your belly, oh, okay, yeah. But when you realize that there's so many wonderful things that are going on along with it, natural processes, things that automatically change you at a deep cellular level, then you can understand the validity of it. And once again, being athletes, people that love to move, be able to take action on things, we know that there's also times when we need to be calm, when we need to be relaxed. Right there before a race, before you're getting ready to dive in, whatever it may be for you, you know that's not necessarily the time to let that adrenaline just totally dump into your body, into your mind, creating the jitters, the tension. You need to find yourself some sense of peace and to be centered, to be present, to not be, once again, getting caught up in the past, not making up stories about the future. So as you find yourself breathing through your nose, deep down into your stomach, allowing that ball, that balloon to expand, I'll let you know, last night, we actually went through hours and hours of thunder and lightning. We have a little Boston Terrier that was on our bed, and she just could not stay still. She was freaking out all night long. And myself trying to get back to sleep, I actually went right back to this technique, because rather than letting my mind just run all over the place, get caught up in what was going on, I simply knew that just holding her, making her nice and comfortable, that was the best I could do for her. And I needed to be able to find a way for myself to be able to relax. So if you find yourself at times when you're not able to sleep, this is a wonderful tool for it, because once again, a lot of the times when people suffer from sleep apnea and not being able to get the proper rest, it's just because their mind is racing. It's once again caught up in stories. So this is a great way to bring yourself into the present moment and to be able to bring the body into an automatic state of relaxation. Just be able to allow it to just settle and to feel good. Well, we have the science that goes in behind it. We have adrenaline up in the chest. We have the fight, flight, or freeze response coming up in through here, and down deep in the stomach, we get to relax. We get to feel good. We get to be centered. We get to be able to think clearly and be at our absolute best. Now here is where it really affects our emotions, because once again, this has been an automatic process, something that we haven't necessarily been aware of our entire lives. But now that you do have awareness, you get to use it in all kinds of wonderful ways. So I love using this tool when people come in when they have a lot of stress and anxiety. And once again, one of the first things that I ask them is, when you're thinking about these things, where are you breathing at? When you feel yourself going through stress, when you feel yourself going through anxiety, when you're thinking about these different stories, wherever they may be, where do you feel your breath? 9 times out of 10, straight up here in the chest. The sternum minimum, they're feeling it somewhere up in this higher region. Perfect. Because the body, the mind is doing exactly what it's supposed to be doing. It's doing exactly what we can benefit from. It's creating adrenaline. Because once again, when we're thinking about those stories, whether we're making them up or not, we are actually putting ourselves in a sense of danger. The alarms go off. They say, hey, we need some fuel. We need energy. We need to make sure that we can get through this all right. We need to be safe. So right off the bat, I want to make sure that you also understand that this isn't something to feel bad about. As a matter of fact, this is something that you should actually be really happy about, that you have this automatic process there to save you whenever you need it, that wants nothing but your absolute safety. Now, the thing is that back when in the caveman days, when we'd be out there rustling, hunting around, whatever it may be, and all of a sudden that bush would rustle, well, all of a sudden that fight, flight, or freeze response would kick in, because wait, what's in that bush? Do we need to fight it? Do we need to run from it? Or do we just play possum? And that was great. Every now and again, that system would get kicked off, no big deal. But in this day and age, that same system is being activated all day long on a constant basis. And it isn't because we're necessarily being attacked by something that's going to be coming out of that bush, but it's because what we think is dangerous these days is something far different from what we used to. One of the biggest examples is social media. And what I mean by one of the biggest examples being social media is because as we're flipping through it, as we're looking at all these pictures of other people and the greatest moments, their greatest accomplishments, the best cars, homes, trips, whatever it may be, people tend to feel a little bit less than who they really are. Not good enough. It's a severe case of trying to keep up with the Joneses. And as you're flipping through it, if you don't have your own ego in check, just your own knowing of who you are, it's easy to fall into that trap. And this is something that you don't want to allow yourself to, because as you're falling into that trap, when you think that you're not good enough, what's going on is that down on a deep intrinsic level, you feel like you're falling out of the tribe, like you're not part of the community. You're not good enough to be with everyone else. And when you're not part of the community, that is a serious danger. And the reason for that is because human beings, we are very community-based. We take care of each other. We help each other, just like we're doing right here today. We all have our own specialties, the things that we excel in, the things that we're able to offer other people to ensure that they have good quality lives. Now, all the people here, obviously, we work on the mental side of things. We want to make sure that people are able to think clearly, to be able to focus on their goals, to be able to achieve what it is they want, not to get to fall back in the old pitfalls, but to keep on excelling. Now, there's other people that own stores where we're able to go buy food, stores where we're able to buy things for our home, cars, whatever it may be. We all have the things that we're able to offer each other. We're a community. We all come together. Now, when we're ostracized, when we don't feel like we're good enough, like we're not part of that community, all of a sudden, all those resources that we need are gone. Or at least that's our belief, so down on a deep level. And when we think that we don't have those resources, that we don't have the people, the companionship, then we're in very real danger. At least down on a deep level, that's how we feel. And once again, anytime that we're in danger, that fight, flight, or freeze response kicks in. That adrenaline starts pumping, the anxiety starts flowing through us, the stress, the overwhelm, the wonder. So now all of a sudden, that system that's such an integral part of who we are, that's so beneficial for us, that helps us in so many different ways, is actually being detrimental. And it's not because it's trying to hurt us in any way. It's not trying to break us down, wear us down in a negative way. It's just because it wants to keep us safe. So when we sense that we're not part of a community, that things aren't going the proper way, it gives us the energy to be able to do what we need to do to rectify that, to make sure that we are safe, that we can do the things that need to be done. Now, bringing it back to social media, if we're just sitting in there flipping through our phone, flipping through all the different pictures, this and that, all the glorious moments of everyone else that they put together for you, well, you're not really doing anything about it, are you? That's when we're sitting in a state of freeze. That's when things actually get worse and worse. That adrenaline, once again, you're sitting there with one foot full-fledged down on the gas, the other one sitting there on the brake, just spinning those wheels, clouds forming, overwhelmed, not being able to see clearly, not even being in the present moment where you can actually do what needs to be done. So I'm not saying to just jump off of social media and whatnot, but at the same time, have an understanding of what's going on as you do, and to be able to notice the things that you experience as you do. So when we go through these different emotional charges, when we feel ourselves being in a sense of danger, we have that adrenaline dump that comes up into the chest. It moves right along with our emotional states. And that's something very, very important here. I want you to remember that. That adrenaline moves right along with our emotional states. The way that we breathe is in accordance with how we are feeling and thinking in that moment. And by understanding that base principle, that's where you get to take charge of it, where you get to take charge of your breath and how you feel, how you move through your world. Because you know that you don't always need to be in that state. You don't need to always be ramped up. As a matter of fact, you can actually find yourself being very comfortable and relaxed in many different situations where before that energy was just running loose, just running rampant. You can actually find yourself into a place of peace and clarity when you're mindful about things and use your breath in the proper way. So once again, we're breathing up into our chest. We're feeling that adrenaline. We feel all the emotions that come along with it, that sense of danger. Now, in order to be able to bring ourselves out of that, there's an easy way, and it's something that we've already done. Begin breathing down into your stomach. The moment that you bring that breath through your nose, deep down into your stomach, you're going to be changing yourself on a deep, intrinsic level. You're going to be able to change those thoughts almost in mere moments. As a matter of fact, I'd actually like to go through an exercise with all of you now. I know that you're all active, just sitting around, that can be, and listening, that's all well and good. You can learn lessons that way. And at the same time, when you have an experience of it, you're able to actually take that, run with it, and incorporate it into your life from this day forward. So what I'd like everyone to do is just to go ahead and put yourself in a nice relaxed position. Go ahead and sit back in your chair, lie back, wherever you're at, whatever's comfortable for you. I'd like you to put your hand on your stomach, and it could be, if it's a little bit below your belly button, even better, even right down there, just below it a few inches. I want you to imagine a ball or a balloon, and you can even see what color that is right now. I want you to begin breathing through your nose, deep down into your stomach, allowing that ball just to go ahead and expand and contract. Focusing all that breath so that you don't even necessarily feel it through your windpipe, through your lungs at all. As a matter of fact, it goes directly from your nose straight down into that ball. Even seeing that color become more vibrant each and every breath that you take. Now, there's many different styles of breathing, and something that works real easy and something easy to remember is box breathing, where basically you breathe in for the count of 3, hold it for the count of 3, breathe out for the count of 3, and hold that exhalation for the count of 3. They actually have SEALs that use this. I'm talking about military SEALs. They use this very same thing to be able to calm and bring focus into themselves as well in the middle of action. So if they're able to do that there, wherever you're sitting at right now, this should be really easy to be able to accomplish. Now, as you're breathing down into your stomach, feeling that relaxation that just automatically flows all throughout your mind, all throughout your body, I want you to just go ahead and enjoy that comfort for a moment. Just be able to really get a sense of how good you can feel by just breathing in this way. Wonderful. Now I want you to go ahead and just break that state. Go ahead and shake yourself for a moment there. And I want you to think about a piece of toast. Just a piece of toast. It doesn't matter, white wheat, whatever it may be for you, butter on there, some cinnamon, it doesn't make a difference. All I want you to do is just to be able to think about something else other than what we were doing, anything other than what we were doing. At this moment, on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being no big deal, 10 being, oh my God, it's the end of the world, I want you to think about something that's about a 5, something that stresses you out that's about a 5. Nothing too big and nothing too little, because we want to have a little something to be able to have an example with. So as you think about that thing now, something about a 5, most people, they're able to find it in a snap, unfortunately, but that's all right, because we can take care of that. Don't worry, you're not stuck with it. Finding that right now, I want you to notice how you're breathing. Where's your breath at? It's interesting, isn't it? After everything we've been talking about and actually getting to have that experience for yourself, finding where that breath is right now. Terrific. All right. Once again, going ahead and thinking about a piece of toast. It doesn't matter. Once again, it'd be a roll. It could be anything you like. Do you like butter on it? Do you like cinnamon on it? You know, some jam, jelly. It comes in those little packets. It doesn't make a difference. Whatever it is that you like. There we go. And the smiles. I love that. All right. So what I'd like you to do now is to go ahead and bring your breathing back down into your stomach. Just bring your breathing back down into your stomach. Just begin breathing in through your nose, allowing that ball, that balloon to expand. Allowing all that wonderful nitric oxide just to flow through you, allowing the blood, the nutrients to energize you, to heal you. Perfect. Now, as you're breathing in this state, I want you to go ahead and once again think about the thing you were thinking about a moment ago, the thing that stressed you out, right about that 5. Now, as you think about that thing, that moment, whatever it may be, I want you to notice what's happening to your breath. Is it staying down in your stomach, especially if you're not doing it intentionally? Does your breath stay deep down into your stomach, or does it try to move? Now, the majority of people that I do this with, they feel that breath, it tries to shoot right back up to where they felt it originally. But now you have awareness about it. You know what's going on, and you have a choice. So feeling good about the fact that this is actually something natural, something that's beneficial for you, not to feel bad that you're going into that state, but to know that it's exactly what needed to happen before. Giving yourself that moment of compassion, which is important. Compassion. Know that we're always learning things. This is something you've been doing your entire life. Why wouldn't it happen right now? Why wouldn't it? It's just like all the other great things that you do, all the other skills that you've learned, you repeat them over and over again. It's an automatic process. So feeling good about that, knowing that you've been doing exactly what you needed to do, I want you to go ahead and allow that breath to come back down into your stomach. Once again, to feel that ball, that balloon, whatever color it may be, expanding, contracting. And when you find yourself back down in that sense of peace and relaxation, then I want you to go ahead and bring your awareness back to whatever was stressing you out. And even if you feel that breath trying to make its way back up, which is perfectly fine, which is something that you used to do, give yourself compassion and allow that breath to come back down. Each and every time, you're going to find that it becomes easier and easier to be able to bring that breath back down into your stomach. Each and every time, you're going to find that you're able to bring yourself back into the present moment, because that's exactly what we're doing here, isn't it? We're not in a state of stress. We're not in a state of anxiety. We're in the present moment. Bring that breath down into your stomach. And as you think about the thing that was stressing you out a moment ago, I want you to notice how you feel about it now. How you can think about things. Because when you don't have stories attached to it, whether they're in the past or in the future, you can actually think about things in a whole different way. There's a lot of times that people completely lose that stress, they lose that anxiety, and they discover that they can actually see opportunities. They can see other ways about doing things. Or maybe they don't even have to worry about it at all. It's just something that's going to pass, something that's going to move on, and they don't have to worry about it. The key thing here is, once again, you're able to see things clearly. You're able to think about things from a place of power, which is what today's all about, isn't it? It's about being empowered, about knowing that even in the midst of turmoil, whether that's in a race, competition, whatever it is, or what we're experiencing right now, especially what we're experiencing right now, that when you're able to think about things clearly, to be able to have a deeper, richer understanding of what's going on around us, to know that instead of finding yourself being confined and being trapped, being stressed, being anxious about things, that right now is actually a golden opportunity. You're forced to stay at home. You're forced to take care of yourself. That's awful, isn't it? You're being forced to take care of yourself, to think about yourself, to think about the other people that you love, to think about your community, to think about this world. And as you're at home, as you have all this time that's been given to you, forced upon you, that's when you get to practice these types of tools, all the ones that all these wonderful instructors have been teaching you today. The ones that are going to be able to change your mindset when you're in that next race, that next competition. And as you practice these things over and over and over again, the automatic processes that you used to go through, they change. And you change. You change for the better. Now, we all know that when we train, that we need to train under pressure, right? That if we're just out there, if we're just swimming against ourselves and we have nothing to worry about, oh, I had my best time ever. Yeah, you were out there by yourself, out in the pool by yourself. There was nobody else to go against. You had no worries about if you're going to make it to states or even higher. And you know that when you put yourself under fire, when you have to worry, when there's concern that goes along with things, when there's really something to lose, when you train under pressure, that's when you get great results. That's when you get even better and better. Now, I'd like you to think about that now, the things that we're experiencing in this world, the things that are going on. What happens when you find yourself being able to be calm, focused, and relaxed in moments just as what we're going through now? And each and every moment, every time that you find yourself going through any kind of stress, any kind of anxiety, that you choose to use the tools that you're being offered right here and right now. And the more that you find yourself able to overcome the stress and the anxiety that you used to experience, the more that you understand just how much better you can be. And that when things do return to a sense of normal, when we're out there, when competitions start opening up again, when you're able to do the things that you really enjoy, you're going to discover that you have a lot more power than what you had before. Because we know that the mental side of things is so, so important. That when you're able to find yourself calm and focused like you are right now, that everything changes. Everything changes. So I really want each and every one of you to consider what we're going through at this moment. Not necessarily to be detrimental. Yes, there's hardships, there's concerns, there's worries. Life and death. And at the same time, this is a time when we can grow, when we can better ourselves, when we have all these wonderful people that are jumping on today that want to share their gifts with you, to share all the different ways that they're able to manage themselves, to even excel in these times, to let you know that you don't have to fall to the stress, the anxiety, to be stuck in that fight or flight, or even worse, freeze. Now, when I was talking at the beginning of this, I was mentioning about how we can use that energy for our benefit. Well, that's what we're talking about right now. Because when we breathe into our chest, that isn't always a negative thing. We already know that it's great there to be able to get ourselves out of predicaments. And at the same time, when we find ourselves in moments just like this, when we need that extra energy, that extra push, that extra motivation to be able to continue doing the things that we need to do, well, the fight or flight mode is actually doing us a great service right now, isn't it? Instead of just sitting around worrying about things, wondering what am I going to do, what's going to happen after this, you can actually use that energy that's being produced in a beneficial way for yourself. To keep on practicing, rehearsing. You could even be learning the things that you've been putting off all this time because you never had enough time. Well, I believe that right now is the time, that you have the energy, that your body, your mind is doing exactly what it needs to do. It's giving you a gift. And now that you have a deeper understanding of that, you know that you can accept that gift. It isn't something that you have to be upset about, that you have to let yourself fall into a deep pit and be stuck. It's something that when you decide to take action, when you decide to move, and I know once again, the majority of people here, we're athletes. The people that are listening to this, that's what we're about. You get to use that gift that your mind and your body has given you to continue to grow, to excel. Now, once again, there's plenty of things that we've been putting off because I'm just as guilty of it as myself. I'm just as guilty of it as myself. I would much rather be moving than be sitting in front of a computer, sitting on a screen. And no offense to anybody out there. I love to move. I love to do things. And at the same time, what's going on right now has forced me to expand, to grow, to do things that I wouldn't have necessarily taken the time to do before, because I would have been doing all the other things that I really love, going about all the habitual things that I know that brings me joy. And at the same time, I also know that this is another way that I needed to grow and that I'm excited about growing. So I would really love for all of you to be thinking about what it is that you want to do with yourselves at this time. What are the things that you've been putting off? Your mind, your body is providing you with all the energy, everything that you need at this moment to do that. Netflix and chill sounds great, and it is great for an hour or two. Watch a movie, watch a show, maybe get into a series. Be careful with that. All of a sudden, you got 6 seasons. And at the same time, you can also do things that are going to be benefiting you, things that you feel good about. You know, we're looking at a couple of weeks for the majority of us, minimum, for the lockdown that's going on. A couple of weeks. That's a long time to be stuck at home. You know, and at the same time, yes, we're able to get outside. We're able to do things. There's nothing stopping you from growing, from using all of that wonderful energy. And at the same time, knowing that when it's time to find that calm, to find that relaxation, that you know how to do that as well. You know, it's interesting. There was a story. A Hindu, they said that in order for us to live the longest, we need to stop breathing. I know that made absolutely no sense to me before. It's like people have tried that, and either they're resuscitated or they're not. It's pretty much there's no in between. But what they meant by that was that, going back to the analogy once again of oxygen being fuel, our bodies being an engine. Consider a car. When you buy a new car, that engine, it's all pristine, right? You can be flying around, you're flooring it, you're having a great time at it, you have no worries, no concerns, everything's in great shape. And then over time, things begin to wear out. Parts start breaking down, you need to get things fixed, taken care of, refitted, whatever it may be. And then ultimately, the car just wears out, the engine just conks out, there's no more saving it. Well, when we have that analogy comparing that engine to the body, same thing happens to us, doesn't it? The majority of the time a baby comes into this world, we have a healthy, vibrant life for years and years and years. And then as we abuse it, as we have different things that come into it, things start to wear out. Things start to break down. Well, what they found was that as we're breathing, as we're creating all of that stress and anxiety, dumping all that adrenaline into the body, we're also wearing down that engine. We're wearing down that system. Our immune system isn't able to operate the way that it normally does. I'll be honest with you, the reason why I do what I do now was because when I was young, teenager, 20s, even into my 30s, I suffered from a lot of stress and anxiety, a lot of depression. And I found that I was also very sick at the worst times. I went through a year of having one cold, flu, sinus infection over, and it was just one thing after another. And that's when I was at the worst point of the stress and anxiety. It's because my immune system was so depleted, because my mind was racing, so caught up in everything else, that it wasn't able to take care of me. And when you're able to slow down your breathing, when you're not allowing yourself to be so overly excited, to have that adrenaline pumping in a negative way, that's when you want to be able to bring yourself down to that nice idle state. You know, they've actually found that the rate of respiration in the US has increased each and every year. People are breathing more and more. And that's because we're creating more and more adrenaline in the body. We have more and more things that we're getting stressed and anxious about. And we're taking in more oxygen to be able to fight off all these dangers. And a majority of them, we don't even have anything we can do about it, unless you make a choice.
How do we measure that? Sorry, I have a question about that. That is so fascinating.
You know, to be honest, I don't have that information for you, how to be able to measure that for yourself. And at the same time, when you become more mindful about how you are breathing through different situations, different scenarios, you're going to discover that a lot of times that we find ourselves breathing straight up into that chest.
Yeah.
And that the more that you can just be able to train yourself, just like anything else, you know, our respiration, the way that we've been breathing, the kicking in, the adrenaline, that's become something that's just built up over time, especially when we have social media, when we have these other forms that are pulling more of our attention to them, creating more adrenaline.
Wow.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Well, I think it's great that you've called our attention to it.
You're welcome, John.
So automatic, so subconscious that, you know, no, I would say the majority of people watching this is the first time they've heard this.
Yeah, it's really interesting. You know, when it comes to the breath, and I'll let you know. You know, there is so many different techniques out there. You've got Wim Hof. You've got method after method that's out there, and I'm not necessarily the person to go to learn all those different methods. And at the same time, when we know the core of something, the foundation, what actually creates the different effects, just having that knowledge in itself is very empowering. Just the simple act of knowing that when we breathe in two different ways, through the mouth into the lungs, through the nose down into the belly, just those two simple facts has such a huge effect on how you experience your life. So.
I don't know if you see a lot of this, I'm sure you do, but when we're face to face with clients or even online, I notice my clients holding their breath, that they go long periods of time without breathing when they've just shared a story, or maybe they've come into the office or they're meeting with me for the first time. So that's so unfamiliar. And unfamiliarity can cause so much anxiety.
Sure.
Then I just noticed that you know, I'm trying to be more aware of that and observing the clients, and I look at them. So I start with breathing, and sometimes they think that's a little weird because we haven't even talked about much, but I think it's the right thing to do, because especially given what you've been talking about, that makes perfect sense. I mean, I understand a lot of the science that you've described, but I think you explained it in a way that I appreciate and I haven't quite heard before, and you've made it more clear. So I'm happy for that. But that's what I noticed is that it's almost as if that's why when you said that last thing about not breathing, I thought that triggered that for me when and as soon as I say, one thing I've noticed about you, and I just met you, is you tend to hold your breath.
Mm.
Well, of course that suggests to them that they need to breathe, and you see them start to breathe differently.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, guiding them to breathe the way that you're describing is exactly what needs to happen next.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Can I add on to that? I think it's really fascinating also
Just
understanding.
tap in anytime you want to too. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. It's kind of lagging, so I don't know when I'm interrupting you. I hope I'm not interrupting anyone. But I think it's so fascinating because when we think of athletics, we don't maybe have a passive moment to like register our breathing, connect with it. But my best races have been when my breath isn't as forced. And even though I'm a sprinter, so I'm not supposed to breathe in my races, I think a lot about how if I'm relaxed, it relaxes, like only breathing muscles are working. So like near the abdomen, and I'm still using all my appendages to be like in full contraction mode. And so super complex. And then always thinking about like breathing is almost always forgotten when you're like training. So for example, weightlifting. So if you're in the weight room and you're like doing a lot of dumbbell bench press or something, if you're not breathing, how are you training yourself to remember that it's not that scary of a situation? Like, yes, you're doing a different rep, but you can see that about a person. Like I always almost hold my breath on push-ups, even though I love push-ups, it's subconscious. So it's crazy.
Yeah. I teach TRX and bodyweight classes also, and when I get people doing circuit training, so we obviously we'll have the cardio aspect of it where they're really out there pushing themselves, doing burpees, whatever it may be, sprinting, and then when we come to the part of the circuit where maybe we're just doing some lifting and stuff, something where we're not having to put a lot of cardio aspect into it, I actually tell all the people that are in that class to bring their breathing down into their stomach, because what's happening at that time is that they're actually resetting their system. They're allowing that adrenaline to subside. They're allowing themselves to relax. They're actually preparing themselves for that next moment when they've got the big bout of cardio that's coming up. So even though you're being active, you're doing some form of exercise, that doesn't mean that you need that high amount of adrenaline kicking into your system. That's why people come out at the end of circuits and they're just completely exhausted, is because they've just let themselves run at that high speed that whole time. They had that pedal down to the floor the entire time. And when you take those moments to just be able to reset, to be able to relax, to be able to breathe properly, to allow your veins to open up. Once again, you're allowing all the blood to flow, the oxygen, nutrients. You're doing yourself a huge service by breathing in that way. Just knowing when to put the gas on and when to ease up on it. So I've noticed that people are able to get through that circuit training so much easier when they're able to be mindful in that way, when they know that there are those times to be able to just breathe easy, when you don't need that big rush of adrenaline going through.
Thank you.
This is a great time to be focusing on breathing, that is for sure. No doubt.
Breathe.
Yeah, well, even in the running that I've been doing over the past few years, I've changed up, my breathing patterns during certain part of the races because they're so long. And just, and you can anticipate, how you can feel when you're really in tune with your body, you can start to anticipate and expect certain things are going to happen because you've experienced them before. And instead of just, not putting that in your bank or whatever to revisit and reflect on and prepare for the next time, like a side stitch, for example. You can, I've done that before where I had a side stitch and I said, okay, now my neck, that I learned something from that. I didn't enjoy that experience. It went on longer than it needed to. And then I learned about how to breathe through that, how to put some pressure, on the abdomen, and then, get some better breathing. But so I think It's fascinating. It is wonderful, but I wasn't doing it for a long time. And I was breathing. It wasn't very good. I wasn't breathing correctly, and apparently I didn't understand the science behind the types of breathing I should be doing, like sprinting versus longer runs and all of that. And then when I start to feel the pressure, that pressure, and of course you breathe, you notice. So, and when you have 13 or so miles, to run, you have time to think about it.
It's so crazy.
So
I've got time to practice.
that's what I'm doing lately. But
Uh-huh.
this is great stuff. I love it so much. So
I was
Thank you.
actually, so I'm thinking about like a swim article right now, and one of the things I put on there is something that's really important for swimmers, and specifically what we call now underwater athletes, is breath control. And so like the world of swimming is changing for sprinters in particular, because they might swim almost the majority of the 25 yards will be underwater for 50 free or something. And so I was saying, how can you learn to practice breath control without having to be underwater and like just doing underwaters all practice? I said, try it during a core workout. Like you can constantly be working on practicing. And in that sense, I was talking about like making sure that you have the like stamina in your lungs. But I should have mentioned, gosh darn it, like everything you said. But it's amazing. Yeah, because people don't realize how stressed they are because they don't register the breathing with it.
Yeah. And when you think about the state that we're all looking for when it comes into being an athlete, or just when we want to be our best, it's obviously putting ourselves into the zone. And when we're in the zone, we're actually very present. And once again, that's what this belly breathing excels at. It brings you into the present moment. I've helped so many different people in so many different situations with this simple, easy tool. I helped one gentleman recently. He actually is in the Coast Guard. He was vying for the position of being commander, getting his own boat. And he'd taken the board for it 3 times, and he'd failed. And it was because he allowed himself to get overwhelmed. He'd been doing this for over 15 years. He worked on the East Coast, Florida. He'd be out there after the drug runners and stuff. They'd be out there, they'd be sneaking up on those cigar boats and cigarette boats, and then, machine guns and everything. And he had no problem with that. And when it came to this board review, it was just knocking him out of his chair. He wasn't getting done what he needed to do. Using this tool right here, he ended up, he went in for his 4th time. He got it. He got his own boat. And they actually told him that he became a commander in the Coast Guard. And they told him that if he'd actually been one of the first people that came in, they stuck him last, as a matter of fact. After everything that he got through, he was the last up.
Oh gosh.
They told him that if he had been first, that some of the other people that they had accepted, that they had made commanders, wouldn't have made the cut. Because the president, the way that he came across, the self-knowing, being present in that moment, because that's what those are all about. It's about seeing how much stress and anxiety a person can handle. Because when you got people's lives in your hands, that's definitely not a time to fall to prey to stress or anxiety. So these things really, really work. Something so fundamental has a huge, huge impact. So I really appreciate having this here today, Joni. Thank you so much for inviting me.
I was just about to tell you how much I appreciated having you and your time. And, well, it's so true. It's so true. I'm just so grateful and I was actually present in the moment, and I love that, because it's really easy when you're hosting something like this to be distracted. And of course, we're all doing this, wherever, whenever, we're squeezing it into, all kinds of things, and having people all over the house and more pets and whatever your situation might be. That's what I've got. And I love it for if they're out there listening, I love it. I love having everyone here, but it makes it more challenging, which I think is great. And I think that I was able to listen in the moment and do the exercises was a gift, and I appreciate it so much.